They won a win.
Okay, seriously?
Shooting, yeah.
How did you do?
Right, he beat me.
It's a shot.
He wasn't missing nothing. What's up, guys? It's your boy Rod. Welcome to another episode of FDA, where we talk faith, dreams, and ascension. And today we have another great guest for you guys. Well accomplished person. She is an attorney, the founder of McSweeney law firm. She graduated Magna Cum Laude at St. Thomas University College of Law. She has recovered millions of dollars in settlements for her clients. She has 7 years of legal experience. She has worked on a ton of immigrant and personal injury cases with her clients. She also works with people that have been sexually abused, victims of medical malpractice and negligence, foster care abuse, car accidents, bullying, and more. Without further ado, Krisel McSweeney.
Hi everyone. Thank
How
you
you
for
doing?
the introduction. Good. Thank you so
It's
much.
awesome, yeah. Really well accomplished person. I was doing research on you, like, wow.
Thank
You know, you do all this stuff, plus you're a mother, and you have another baby on the way.
I do. Third boy.
That's
It's
crazy.
exciting.
Talk about like balancing all that, you know, with work and your family.
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging. I think that the biggest challenge is learning how to prioritize as far as like things you can put off and things you have to do now, because otherwise I think you'll just go nuts. So I think prioritizing and learning that not everything has to get done right away, right?
That's cool.
And so it's a lot of it is juggling, you know, being a mom, a working mom and a wife. It's just juggling, and then also having your own time, because your own time with God, your own time for self-care, that's really important nowadays. So, and that's just as important as you can take care of everyone else around you.
That's awesome. So what are you looking forward to as 2021 is about to close? What are some of your goals for just to finish strong, close out this year, and obviously with the baby on the way? Like, tell me about your excitement with that, with the new baby boy.
Definitely. So the due date's December 31st. So having a healthy baby boy, of course, is priority number one. So we're praying for that. But also, I just started my firm about 6 months ago. Before that, I was with a private firm in Boca.
That's awesome.
And just seeing the year close out, seeing the success of my cases, and just really helping my clients feel that they're protected. And that my goal is just communication with clients and being genuine and letting them know that I'm passionate and that I'm doing what's best for them in their case and what they trusted me with, which is a big deal. Most people that come to me is because they have a problem. You know, it's not the best.
Yeah.
It's not the, you know, when you go to a doctor, generally you're sick and things like that. And so it's a pivotal point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
They need to feel that they can trust the attorney they're hiring and all these things. And so my goal is really just to communicate that my firm is a resource to anyone and everyone out there.
Gotcha.
And that I'm here to help and that I'm passionate about what
And
I
they
do.
feel cared for and everything.
Exactly.
Taken care of.
It's
That's
like
big.
family, you know? Yeah.
For sure, yeah. So obviously, we're doing a show. You know what I'm saying? We're doing so FDA, faith, dreams, and ascension. So we're about to hop straight into it. You know, we know that you're a woman of faith. You know, well, I know that. You guys don't know that, but she's a woman of faith. You know, and so talk about your upbringing. Like, how was it like growing up?
Yeah. So.
And where are you from too?
My family's Dominican, from the Dominican Republic. I was
Haitian,
born in New York.
same island.
Yeah, neighbors. So I grew up in New York, middle class family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was very hardworking. Worked in the refrigeration business. He kind of taught himself everything he knew. It was inspiring to see how he had his own business. But and I always grew up in the church. But for some reason, I don't know, I grew up thinking like that I had a limit. I had a cap, a ceiling as to my future. And I don't think my parents did that in any way, and maybe that's the way I interpret things or my perception of life. So that's something that I've had to really break through. But growing up, you know, I had a great childhood, great memories. I have 2 sisters whom I love very much, and we're best friends even to this day. So it was a beautiful childhood, and like grew up in the church. I don't remember not going to church.
Yeah.
You know, it was the thing we knew we had to do.
So in New York, you said it's the Bronx?
Yes, I was born in the Bronx, and we moved everywhere. We moved so many places.
So when did you come to South Florida?
We came to South Florida in my high school year. I think I was in 11th grade when when we moved to South Florida, which was a big a difference for sure, because the life in New York is so fast paced.
New York to South Florida, boom.
Well,
Were you mad that you moved? I know a lot of kids, they get mad when they move and change.
You know what, I kind of like, it was weird, but I kind of liked it. It was a new beginning for me. I was able to, you know, make new friends, but back then it not as great, because back then there was no social media, so I didn't keep in touch with any of those friends that I made. But I didn't see the negative, and we were so used to, we had moved so many times within New York. We moved like 8 times in my childhood, so I was kind of used to it, and it was always because my dad wanted better for us. So we would move from a tiny apartment in the Bronx to a big house in Long Island. So we always saw that it was my dad trying to give us bigger and better, and that helped.
Then
you know?
Obviously you want to do that for your kids as well.
I do.
Always trying to give your
course.
kids bigger and better. That's awesome.
100%.
So, when did you give your life to Jesus, and what made you decide to surrender your life to Christ?
So like I said earlier, I grew up in the church, so I feel like from a young age I feared God. Not in a bad way. At one point it was a bad way, because I was like, I don't want to go to hell. When you learn about hell the first time, you're like, oh God. But then it became more of like a respect. Like, okay, I know we have to go to church. I enjoyed learning about God. So I kind of grew up in that. I don't know that I have a date that I could tell you, like I gave my life to Christ, but I do have a date as an adult, which was right around the time I met Silk, where I decided to really do my best to live the way we're supposed to live as Christians, to live, to be more Christ-like.
But to walk.
Exactly. And I haven't been perfect since. I've made mistakes. I've sinned. We all do that. But it was Silk helped a lot with that. My husband, great
we interviewed him last episode. Y'all seen that?
Great man of God. So he helped a lot with that, and just I think obviously God used him to help me get back on track with where I was supposed to be in life, and not just say, hey, I love God. A lot of people love God, but okay, what are you doing to honor God in your life, and what sacrifices are you making?
Amen.
Obviously all Bible based. What is expected of you as a Christian, and things like that.
That's awesome. So describe some ways that Jesus has grown you throughout your life and throughout your time as an attorney, even.
There's so many ways, but one of the ways I mentioned is removing that ceiling, that imaginary ceiling that I had, whether it's as a female, like as a minority. I don't know why I placed that in my life. And
so like, what was that cap or ceiling that you placed?
I don't know, it was just like, okay, like, you know, before I went to law school, I was like, okay, I'll be happy I remember I was an administrative assistant in my late teen years. I was making pretty good money. I was in New York, and I was happy with that. I was like, okay, I can afford an apartment. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. But then I went to law school, and I thought, okay, I don't think I'm going to do well. I don't know anyone who's a lawyer. You go to law school, they have all these connections. Their uncle's a judge. Their mom's a lawyer. You know? And I was like, I don't have any of that. And so then I graduated Magna Cum Laude. I remember I was like top 5 in the school.
That's dope.
Thank you.
That's
it was a lot of hard work, a lot of family support.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I knew Silk at that time. We were together, so his support and his encouragement was big. You know, he understood I need to step aside. It's a lot of work. But so God kept in every stage of my life with what I was doing, kept like removing the barriers I placed on myself. So went to law school, graduated with this high honor. Then, and I thought I couldn't do it. I thought I was gonna like barely make it. You know, it's challenging. Your first year, it's very challenging as a law student. But then I end up thinking, oh, there's so many attorneys in Florida. I'm never gonna get a job. You know, like what sets me apart. You know, then I get this great job at a nonprofit doing what I love, because that's the thing. I never do things for money.
Money is out of the heart.
Exactly. Like if I'm making a lot of money and I don't enjoy what I'm doing, why am I doing it? You know.
I love that.
And so I got this job at representing undocumented immigrants, so minors that came in from the border, through the border, that were either sex trafficked in their home countries or abused, or labor trafficked, that were victims of labor trafficking. So I represented them, and I tried to help them try to help them get some immigration relief. That was my job for some time, and I loved it. I loved helping. I loved how rewarding it was. And then I started working for a private firm representing sex abuse victims, which it's horrible, it's horrific, the facts that you deal with, but after something horrible and traumatic like that happens, I love helping. And so my whole point to answer your question is God has, in every stage of my life, exceeded my expectations. And
increased your faith,
increased my faith.
So I remember you put limitations on yourself, and you see, okay, God, you've done this and abundantly more.
Exactly.
Progressing. That's cool.
And sometimes I forget, right? But it's like David. I have to, like when David first protect the sheep from a bear and from a lion and then Goliath. So I have to always remind myself, like, why am I placing this limit on myself? God has never placed a limit on me. Like, I'm getting all these things done. And through, obviously, God's grace, right? It's not just me. But through hard work, too. Because hard work, you have to work hard. There's nothing, God's not going to come and do it for you. Exactly. But, so that's basically it. Just God exceeding my expectations and growing my faith and removing any limitations that I've had.
That's awesome.
Place on myself.
That's cool. That's awesome. So it's cool to see that growth. You know, that there's times in my life where I see God like, man, you were faithful in the past. So I know you're gonna be faithful with this next big thing. And so this gives you confidence going into the next obstacle or hurdle. So that's awesome right there. So why do you think God has placed you on this planet, and for what purpose?
I feel like, even though sometimes it's like, feels like a curse for me sometimes, I'm very empathetic. Like, I care so much. I try not to be so considerate, and I feel things a certain way. And I feel like God placed me here to impact people in a way so that they feel that they're not alone, no matter what they've been through. And so, like, for example, with the cases I handle that are sexual abuse cases, I feel that, there are a lot of great attorneys out there. I'm not the only. I think I'm a great attorney because I'm passionate and I work hard.
Yeah, you care.
And I care. But there are some attorneys that just don't necessarily understand where the person's coming from or what the person has been struggling with for years before they make that first call or before they have that initial consultation. Yeah. And I feel like that is so crucial because you never want to be the cause of re-victimizing someone. Exactly. So if someone's been through something hard, you want to be able to ensure that person, help that person feel safe, provide a safe space. So I feel like God has given me the ability to really empathize with people, and it's genuine. It's not like I'm trying. It just happens. I try not to because I feel bad many times.
Yeah, and then that gives you an extra element for as an attorney. You know what I'm saying? Like, you empathize and you sympathize with them, and a lot of times people who are going through those difficult sexual abuse and all types of different abuse, they can feel, okay, she's not only trying to help me legally, but also as a person.
Yes, 100%.
That's cool. That's dope.
100%. So
that's dope right there. And so, do you feel like any type of pressure or persecution, like through legislation, as a Christian, increasing in the U.S. today?
I mean, obviously, a lot of things have changed as far as like God being discussed at schools and public schools, mainly, things like that. But I still think we can make an impact. We, by meaning Christians, Christians. It starts on a small scale. I was just teaching my sons. We were reading the daily devotional for boys. I have sons. I have a 7 and a 4-year-old, and the first thing was to be bold for Christ. And I was just asking them, like, what ways can you share Jesus, like the message, the gospel and about Jesus. And I just said, you can be at a playground and just talk about it. And nothing's going to happen. There's freedom of speech. So I do feel like we can make a difference as individuals. And then obviously, I feel as Christians, a lot of Christians are placed in different arenas. So there are Christian doctors and Christian lawyers and Christian legislators and Christian coaches, like my husband. And so I feel like in whatever area you're in, you can make an impact in that area. For sure. So I feel like we just have to continue to think, okay, how can we do that within the area that God placed us?
Amen.
In the hemisphere or and location, right?
Amen, yeah. Everyone has their own, I feel like we're all, well, I know that we're all evangelists, but God's gifted us in different areas and we're supposed to use our gift, And I think that, Christ says in the Word that we will face persecution, and because Christ faced persecution. He was beaten, spat upon, was hung on the cross, killed, and so I feel like, it's prophesied that the persecution will get worse, and so I think we have to be prepared for that in the future, and so I just want to encourage other Christians to be ready for that no matter what. You get Christians in the Middle East getting their heads cut off, a lot of times get caught reading the Bible, you're forced to eat the Bible, the pages, the whole thing, It's bad for the stomach. And so in China, get jailed for being a Christian. And so American Christianity is different from other places. And so, man, we just gotta remember like the power of the gospel, the power that it can liberate people taken from death to life and held to heaven. And so it's a really great message that we hold. And like he said, we have to be bold. It's great that you're teaching your son to be bold in the playground or wherever he goes. That's awesome. So what words of encouragement would you give to a viewer watching this, searching for direction, or is going through a valley or a trial or depression?
I would just say, it sounds so simple, but I had a revelation the other day when there was something out of my control happening. And what I thought about is control, or attempt to control, or control what you can control. What you can't, you need to leave it to God.
Amen.
There are certain things we can do to set us up for success. And my definition of success is when your preparation meets God's opportunities. So there's certain things you can control. Focus on controlling that. And put your energy in that, because if you start worrying about the things you cannot control, first of all, nothing's going to happen. If you pray about the things you cannot control, the Bible says be prayerful in all things, and do not worry, instead pray. I know I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it says. Just trust me. But basically just put your energy on controlling what you can control, and whatever you can't, you pray and you leave it up to God, because I can't say when you let God be God in your life and do what He is going to do, beautiful things can happen. One, your faith gets built up. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out the way you thought it would. Your faith has just grown. So that's the worst case, and that's a great case, right? That's a win-win. And then the best case scenario turns out even better than what you expected, like we were discussing earlier. God always exceeds our expectations because He knows what we need. We know what we want, but we don't always know what we need. And I just think we need to trust that. And it's hard. You need to train yourself. And the way, I'm very practical, right? So I don't like things that are so abstract where you can't apply it. So the way I do that practically is, if there's something I am worrying about, or something that's physically making me sick or anxious. Sometimes I feel anxious. I wake up feeling anxious. And I just talk to God like, God, either I don't know why I feel this way, I do, but you know what? I'm going to give this to you. Every time a thought of worry comes into my head, I'm giving this to you, God. Like, train yourself to speak it or to think it, because that's another thing. Your thoughts are so powerful.
Amen.
So if you continue thinking negative, what's going to happen? It's just, you will see negative everywhere, or that's what your life will be filled with. But if you have a negative thought and you immediately recognize it, and you immediately say, God, I give you this thought, no, I will not receive this thought, and you not just say you don't receive it, but replace it with a positive thought, that negative thought's gonna keep growing like a tree. It's like it's implanting roots, and it's growing, and you don't want that. So I know it's a lot, but basically just train yourself to think a certain way too.
That's awesome, because it's a battle for our mind, It's a battle for our mind. With even says in the word, like, do not be conformed of this world, but be transformed by renewing of your mind. And so, like you just said, like, making those negative thoughts or bad thoughts obedient to God's word, obedient to what God's promises are, and reminding yourself of God's promises. So that's awesome right there. And so we spoke about faith, right? Now we can talk about dreams. So growing up, what was your childhood dream or childhood dream job?
Be an astronaut. I think everybody at one point that's all I wanted to do. I love science and algebra. But no, really, once I grew up, I was like, oh, I want to be a teacher. I feel like I had the patience. I loved learning. I just, my grades were off the charts. And then I remember my dad, I don't know if it was for better or for worse, but my dad, and I don't know if they're like this in Haiti, but my dad's like, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. That's it. And so I guess I took it very seriously and I became a lawyer. But I'm glad I did. I feel like I can't picture myself doing anything else. I mean, now I'm an entrepreneur and lawyer because I have my own firm, so it's two different aspects. But I just love helping people. I like helping people, so whatever context, and it's now in the legal context, which I love because I see things like a puzzle. I'm able to solve a puzzle and give people a voice that have no voice or feel they have no voice. So that's a combination of two of my favorite things.
That's dope. So first astronaut, and then a teacher, and then a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm sure other things between there, but that's like what I remember,
That's cool. Yeah. So did you play any sports growing up?
Oh my gosh, no. I tried. I wanted to so bad. I admired girls that did, but I had like an issue with my knee, and
what sport?
I just played. I tried a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I tried soccer. I wasn't good. I'm not athletic at all, but I wanted to be really bad. Really bad.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty clumsy. Thankfully my kids don't take after me, but I just couldn't really play. Like just physically, it would be difficult on my knees. So I kind of gave up at a young age, trying things out. But I never really played a sport. No.
Okay. So like, what about so your dad sparked the interest to become an attorney, or what sparked your interest?
I mean, no, I don't. You know what? That's a good question because I didn't fully answer that. I just think. I don't know. I feel like God placed it in my heart. I can't say I watched something that made me want. I just feel like it was in my heart one day. I graduated high school, went to college for something completely different. Hospitality, first graphic design, then hospitality management, which is like hotels and tourism. And then I took a class. Okay, so I think this was a pivotal moment. I took a class, hospitality law, and the professor was like, "You're really good." Like it was just very intuitive for me with the law and the cases. So he's like, "You're really good at this. Are you going to go to law school?" And I said, I don't know. So I think that was a moment where someone believed I could do that based on my performance. So then I ended up getting a job, no legal experience. I ended up getting a job at a law firm. I'm like, let me see if I like this. I don't know if I did, and I did like it. And then I took the LSAT and went to law school.
So that's what. So then when did you start like to fall in love with the career, with being an attorney and everything?
I think in law school I was able to see all the possibilities of like, wow, this is a pretty big career and I can do so much. I think my first year I was able to realize, oh, this is what it takes. Because people watch, I guess law shows and they think something, right? But it's
Law and Order.
Yeah, things like that, and it's a lot. Some of it is factual, it's based on the real law, but some of it is fictional. You don't see the behind the scenes working hard. You don't really see the hours and hours of reading and research and reading cases and trying to decipher what does this law mean, breaking it down. Like you don't see that on TV. Yeah. But when I was doing that in law school, I was like, I thought it was so interesting. I love, like I said, I saw things as a puzzle. So you give me facts. You went through something. You're experiencing something, and you want to bring forward a case, and then there's a law, and I have to make it fit like a puzzle, right? I have to make sure this fact goes to this element of this law. So, and I have to kind of like a puzzle, and so I love that.
That's cool.
So like in law school.
So it's like always like solving a problem. It's like always, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's
cool.
how I see it.
Like almost, it's always something new too. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I have the most random cases. I have like dog bite cases, a falling tree case. I have most of my cases are sexual abuse, but even within the sexual abuse context, there's private schools, public schools, and there's churches. So they're all different laws apply to different kinds of entities. So every case is different. There's not one case.
There's so much variations of stuff.
And laws, like I have cases in New York. I have cases in Florida. And so there's just everything. It's always different. So
you do both, like New York and Florida?
Yes, I'm not licensed in New York, but I do hire, and I'm only licensed in Florida. But the way I can handle cases in other states is if I partner with a local attorney. And there's a legal process that you could just go through where they say, the court basically says, okay, fine, you can represent someone living in the state.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. I know that.
So it opens up the doors for so many possibilities. Yes.
So obviously we spoke about the type of people you represent, and what makes you want to or decide to represent people with sexual abuse and medical malpractice, or whether that's immigration? Like, what spurred that passion in you to represent those type of people?
Yeah, so like I said, I love helping people, and I think anyone who's been through any sort of situation that has impacted their life is worthy of help. But I love helping people in the most vulnerable of situations. And so one could be an undocumented person who's here in the U.S. who, for example, gets into a car accident. He or she feels they have no rights. I'm here to step in and say, yes, you don't have status right now, but you have rights. You're a human being here. A lot of people don't think undocumented immigrants have rights, or that the Constitution doesn't apply to them. It does. And so they fear getting medical help because they fear getting deported. So I want to be here to say, no, you have a voice. we have to be careful with how we navigate the legal world, because there's always a possibility of deportation if you don't have status, right? But at least I can give them a voice and help them. When you pursue a claim for compensation, or basically money, a civil claim, the whole thing is to make the person whole again. That's no one can ever really be whole. You get in a car accident, even if you get an insane amount of money, you still have these injuries you have to really deal with. So it's like, but I am there to get them some form of justice. It's not perfect, some form. And so with sex abuse victims, unfortunately, so those are my two biggest, where a lot of my cases come in, like a large percentage. But with sex abuse the damages for someone who's been sexually assaulted are just, you can't fathom. It affects every area of someone's life, whether it's relationships, whether it's ability to respect authority, especially if it was someone that, like a teacher. It could be, it's depression, self-harming, anxiety, so many things. And so if I can step in and help someone towards their healing journey, that's what I want to do.
That's great. So do you like get emotional a lot on these cases, because it's very like intense stuff? You ever like cry? And
I did in the beginning. I physically cried. Now it's just like I've been able to kind of hold it in, and I think it's important for clients that they see someone who's strong there with them, and that believes them. That's a big thing. A lot of I'm just focusing on the sexual assault cases. A lot of clients have been groomed, and by groomed I mean like the perpetrator would say something like, no one's ever going to believe you, or you participated in this, so you had a part to play. There's a psychological manipulation that when they do come out and say something, they feel guilty, or they're at fault, or they participated, or it physically felt okay, because biologically speaking, certain things, if I tickle you, you're going to laugh if you're ticklish, So that creates a big disconnect. When someone's talking about it, they feel like they're at fault, they feel shame. And so once I'm able to be a strong influence in that person's life, and stay strong and say, you know what, this was not your fault. You didn't ask for this. You didn't want this. You were a child. This person took it. Then it helps them feel like, okay, this is not my fault. So I have to be strong, but it does make me feel very bad. And at moments when I'm home, I think about certain things, especially if one of my children says something that reminds me of a case. It kind of like takes me back, and it's tough, but I have to rise above that, because I do feel God placed me here to help people who have been through that experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know a lot of people haven't been through that, Yeah, that's tough. I'm glad that you guys giving me the heart and the courage to take these cases on, help these. It's mostly ladies you deal with, right?
No.
Guys do?
Yeah.
Guys do.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I would say, and a lot of it is underreported, right? And there's a different dynamic depending on who I like to refer to my clients as survivors. Who the survivor of sexual assault as opposed to victims. Who the survivor of sexual assault and who the perpetrator is. Like when you're dealing with the dynamic of like male on male, it's very hard for the male survivor to talk about it, because he's going to be seen as like, other things that he may not want to be seen as or referred to as. And so there's so many, and then when it's a female, it may just have fear, and it's different dynamics and different things that make this kind of crime be the type of crime that is underreported. But I would say my cases have been about 50% male, 50% female. Just the same.
That's crazy. I didn't even think that. That's wild.
It's unfortunate.
Oh, wow.
It's horrible. It's a horrible problem.
Yeah.
But I do think we're at a stage now all over the nation where there's more awareness. There's a lot more awareness than there was years back, I have to say, which is like one of the positive things. But there's still a lot of work to be done to prevent this from continuing to happen to young children and vulnerable people, period. I've had a case with an elderly woman at a home. It's not just children, it's adults, it's the elderly, it's the mentally disabled, it's anyone with some sort of vulnerability, or someone who was previously victimized that just becomes a target, because I could get into the everything, but if you were victimized before, you just become an easy target because you're more submissive, or you think this is supposed to happen. That happens a lot within the foster care context. or they feel I'm not worthy, I can't ask for help, no one's going to listen to me. So it's a problem that we need to address more, but there is more awareness now, which is good.
Yeah, that's good that you're being an advocate for that, you know, and that obviously more awareness is coming up. You know, that's tough for real. But you know what I'm saying, you're like a hero.
Thank you.
You're a hero in a lot of different ways. So obviously you spoke about some cases or certain situations, but what are some unforgettable, like, I don't want to call it this, it's not really, or successes and successful cases that you had with your clients? You don't have to get into too much detail, but just describe.
So a lot of people define success as like the amount you recover. I've recovered millions for clients, and that's great, you know, because it helps them not have to worry about money and focus on their healing, so they can get therapy, or they could go back to pursuing an education, or they lost X amount of years in high school, so now they could get a GED, go to college, and not worry about working. So it is good to recover. It's not all about the money or compensation, but it is good to recover compensation, because that's what this whole civil process is about. However, my biggest successes that I could think of as a whole, just when I have clients tell me, I recently filed a case, and this is all public, which is why I'm sharing this. I recently filed a case against the School Board of Palm Beach County for peer-on-peer, so male-on-female sexual assault to students.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yes, and when I filed, I hadn't even recovered anything yet, and we're still in the litigation process, which means we still haven't gone to trial, we haven't settled. And when I filed, the client wrote me the most beautiful text message. Like, she just thanked me so much. She said, "If this is all you do for me, this helps me so much. Thank you for believing me," because unfortunately, you know, the complaint alleges that the school not only failed in preventing the sexual assault, but once she disclosed the sexual assault, they failed her, and she ended up dropping out her 11th grade year.
Oh, wow.
She would have graduated this year with her peers. So she lost all these high school years. She doesn't have her diploma. She lost the experience of just being, you know, I remember, you know, I've known you for a while. I remember when you graduated high school, you know, prom and all these great things, and the little things that you have to stress about as a teenager, like the right dress, or the right tux, or who do I take on for prom. She wasn't worrying about these things. She was home with panic attacks, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, depression, because of what happened and how the school responded. That's key. The school would have responded a different way. She wouldn't have felt re-victimized. She would have felt supported, you know, and that makes a huge difference. So my whole point is, me just hearing from my clients, thank you so much for believing in me. Thank you so much for listening to me and for fighting for me. That to me is a success.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So really just, man, that's crazy. Obviously I can't imagine how that feels, but just for have someone to believe in, like, almost like validation. Okay, this is real. This is my situation, and this is what happened. You know, so you really just help ignite that process of healing.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what it is. Not one thing. I always say there's not one thing that anyone can do no one can snap their fingers and say, you're fine. You're not going to deal with symptoms of depression, or you're not going to have flashbacks anymore. But there are different steps you can take towards healing. And that's a lot of it is like support from family members and friends and loved ones. Therapy, very important. But I also think what I do with the legal process and the counseling, I'm not a counselor, okay? I want to mistake that, but a lot of what I do is, you know, I'm legal counsel, and so I counsel my clients not only as to the law, but the morality aspect of it, the social aspect of what we're doing. And so all of that helps towards healing. It helps you get to where you're gonna get to there anyway, but it's just gonna require more work, unfortunately. But once you put in the work, and with God's help, it'll be okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Okay, so what are some things that you want people to know? What are some other things that you want people to know that you're passionate about? Obviously, you know, you're passionate about being a mother, you know, being a wife, being a lawyer, you know. What are some other things that people may not know that you're passionate about? Yeah,
so one thing I did start, and it kind of has a lot to do with the area I'm in, but I did start a nonprofit as well this year. I got pregnant, started my first, started a nonprofit, way too many things. It's Sexual Assault Prevention and Advocacy, for short SAPA. Awesome. So it just got approved as a 501c3. I'm working on applying for grants because obviously we need funding. But my goal with SAPA is a lot of the times, unfortunately, sexual assault victims, survivors, deal with certain legal issues, and they don't necessarily have the finances or the resources to pay. Like, for example, someone who's a victim of sexual assault and domestic violence, and they want a divorce or help with child support, they can't pay an hourly attorney for a family law claim. So my goal would be to help with the legal process, help with the divorce, the custody, or immigration if someone was unfortunately, sexually assaulted here in the U.S. and is undocumented. Help them getting some sort of immigration status, or that's just an idea. Or someone reports someone criminally and they're going through the criminal process. Someone in my organization would guide them, because the criminal process also is a very scary thing for a survivor, because a lot of law enforcement agents don't understand. Like, for example, someone who's been sex trafficked from the age of 12 and then they become a prostitute at the age of 18. So they're not differentiating between someone who's just been in that life for years and now they're going to jail for being a prostitute.
That's when this whole mindset was jacked up from
not just
like that.
Yeah, not just that. It's not mindset, but they have someone over them, typically referred to as like a pimp.
Oh yeah, a pimp. Yeah.
Either giving them drugs so they become dependent, or threatening them with bodily harm, so they're doing better with law enforcement. There's more training and all these things, but if the criminal process can be scary for a survivor. It's just so many things being thrown at you, people that are insensitive, and so I would help, or my organization would help guide that person through the criminal process, because it's important the case doesn't fall through the cracks, or that the victim in the criminal process doesn't disappear, because then they can't prosecute and they can't get the person who's at fault. They can't punish that person.
Gotcha.
Because I don't know if you know, like, I'm sure you've heard on TV, like, when you prove a criminal case, you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
It's a very high standard. So if the person who says, hey, I've been victimized, falls off the face of the earth, and the jury can't put a face to that victim, a lot of the time these cases fall through the cracks unless there's compelling evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant did this wrong thing that the state is charging them with, because it's the state charging. I know I'm getting into it, but my point is it's very important. And so my goal would be to just help anyone who's been victimized as a sexual assault, as a victimized in the sexual assault context, provide them with legal help. For things attorneys don't typically take, because it's not profitable. It's just not.
Okay. That's okay. That's awesome. So basically, started a non-profit organization to help out people who can't really afford these legal services, and to give them obviously insight on what they can do. And that's another addition of things that you're passionate about. You know what I'm saying? So it really is not about the money. It's really just trying to help people. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's my goal. Another thing I'm passionate, I love cooking. I love cooking. Anybody knows I love cooking. I enjoy it. I'm always posting on my Instagram stories like different dishes I make, and
that's cool.
Silk loves eating, so it works out.
So Dominican dishes?
Oh, everything. I make everything, But yeah, my Dominican is my go-to, but I try everything.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome right there. All right, so we spoke about faith. We spoke about dreams. Now we're going to talk about the ascension, the climb up, the trials, tribulations, all that good stuff, right? And so, what are some trials and tribulations that you have to overcome to get to this point? I know you spoke about it. But what are some trials you have to get to this stage of life, this point of life, with being a wife, being a mother, being an attorney? And what are some trials and tribulations you have to overcome that they want to talk about?
Well, one of the biggest that comes to mind as a mom is our first son, CJ, was Silk Jr. Was born with clubfoot, which is a condition that basically bilateral clubfoot. Both his feet were turned in like a golf club, so he didn't have an ankle. So you would typically see like a child walking kind of like this, no ankle, and so that was a big thing. So it was like straight? You mean? No, it was curved like a golf club.
Oh, okay.
Where they would walk on the top of their, so imagine this is the top of your foot, and they would end up walking on the top of their feet, and the bottom of their feet would be like twisted in.
Oh, okay.
So he was born with that, and that was pretty hard, because I was believing in God, because I was born with that condition, and I just was so strong in that my kids weren't gonna have to deal with that. That was a big thing where I was like, God, why? Why? And I know it's not all about me. God has his own purpose in my child's life. It's not just about, and as a parent, I think we have to think about that. The things that happen to our kids, they don't only happen to us. It's God may have a purpose, a separate purpose for what that in the child's life.
Okay.
And so that was very difficult to deal with. He's perfectly fine now. You've seen him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, he can't stop running and jumping, and sometimes I wish he would stop, but but that was difficult as a mom, just to deal with that. As a lawyer, the same thing I said before, just removing that ceiling and allowing to see what God has placed in me without any of my self-imposed limitations.
Gotcha.
And as a wife, it's pretty easy to be married to Silk. He's such a great guy. He's very loving, and so I can't think of anything right now, but those are basically
That's awesome.
the biggest things.
Cool. That's really cool. How did the foot thing
How did it heal? Yeah, he had to have surgery at a very young age and wear casts for many weeks, and then wear this special boot for up until the age of 4. These special boots. I don't know if you remember ever seeing him.
I remember seeing
They're
that.
they're called Dobbs, DOBBS Dobbs boot, and they have a connection in the middle, and his feet have to be straight like this. So that was pretty challenging. Just
Was it painful for him?
I think it was more discomfort than anything, and he doesn't remember the surgery. He was so young. He was out of, obviously under general anesthesia, so he's not. I don't think he remembers anything. But he's perfectly fine now, thankfully.
That's cool. That's awesome. That's a blessing. Praise God for that. You know what I mean? That's awesome right there. So, what are some pros and cons you think comes along with being an attorney?
Yeah. So obviously everyone's different, but a con could be you take on your client's problems. That's my whole empathy thing. But some attorneys are good at not doing that, you know. But a con is like someone comes to you with a problem, you take it on, you want to resolve it, you want to get good results. And the thing is, sometimes the law is the law, and no matter how, I'll give you an example. There's something called the statute of limitations. Any kind of claim you have has a statute of limitations. There may be exceptions to that, and what a statute of limitations is, for example, you get into a car accident in Florida. You have only 4 years to bring the case. If you don't bring the case within those 4 years, it can be the strongest case in the world, and you bring it the day after those 4 years, the day after 4 years from the date of the incident, you're done. So I've had cases, specifically sexual abuse cases, horrific, that are past the statute of limitations. And the law's the law. There's no matter how good of an attorney I am, you sometimes can't override that. So sometimes it's kind of like accepting that, and you can't always resolve every single case favorably.
Yeah, sometimes it takes time for someone to actually admit and tell a person.
Yeah, specifically with sexual abuse. And a lot of laws are changing because, like I said, there's more awareness as to the effects of sexual abuse, so a lot of laws are changing. I can't get into that now, it's too long, but that's been a good thing, and they're thinking about changing it in Florida, but we have to see how that goes.
Gotcha.
And then that's a con. Right? That's
a
con. Yeah, I started with con. And then pro is, it's just, I feel like it's...
Again, it was like those text messages, things like that.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding when you do help a client favorably or exceed their expectations. It's great to see just the happiness and just the relief, because whatever kind of case it is, it can be a car accident case, it looms over someone's life for X amount of time. So once there's resolution, especially something favorable happening, there's a sense of relief, and they're like, thank you, just a simple thank you. It's
that's
great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Like you said, really rewarding to see that, and so what are some career goals, what are some challenges you have to overcome? No, what are some career goals, and what are some challenges that you have to face to reach those goals?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's basically the question. Yeah.
So, like I said, I just started my firm about 6 months ago, so my career goal would be to grow my firm. To be able to hire staff and really grow my firm to become more of a resource to the community. And some challenges that I have to overcome is a lot of what I've been saying, removing that self-imposed limit, as well as also really prioritizing, because my family's growing and there's more responsibility, so prioritizing, being able to juggle, and just leaning on God, even when I have no idea what's going on, just really leaning on God and what I feel God has spoken over my life. And that's not, I mean, in theory it sounds great, but it's not always easy, right? Like sometimes we're in one place, we're like, why did I get into this? You know what I mean? But I have to go back and remember, okay, why did I get into this? You know what I mean? It's a question people usually say in a negative light, but why did I? And I felt when I did, a lot of it was suggestion, support, but then I also did feel confirmation. This is what I'm on the right track. And so it's really, really leaning on God. That's
awesome,
the biggest challenge.
What would you say what do you think it takes to physically, spiritually, and mentally to be like a progressing woman of God, you would say?
I would say, and it obviously goes kind of with the question because you said progressing, but just being able to see the areas in life where you can grow. I feel like I was contemplating in my earlier years, like as a teenager and the early 20s, and seems like forever ago, but I realized I didn't do much growing. Like, yes, in like career-wise, like, yes, I went to school, I went to law school, but as far as like a human being, you know, when you're young, people say, oh, you always stay the same. They say never change, but that's the wrong thing to say. You need to change. You need to change for the better, right? Don't change your good characteristics or qualities for bad. You need to change for the better. But I never realized as an adult, you need to change. You need to grow. You need to work on yourself, and that takes work. That takes acknowledgement. That takes not being prideful. That takes understanding. Okay, this is an area I struggle with or I deal with. I need to look at what I can do better and do it and practice it until it becomes my lifestyle, until it becomes my thoughts, then my habits and my lifestyle, right? And so I think to be a progressing woman of God, you have to progress, right? You have to put in the work to get better. And I feel like you're never going to stop because nobody's like Jesus, right? No one's perfect. And so I feel like there's always room to get better and to grow.
Exactly. God is always sanctifying us, you know. And one thing you did mention, you talk about pride. Like, pride is really one of the biggest cripplers in people's lives because it can hinder you from really just seeing where you're at fault and hinder you from just growing. You know, the Bible talks about how God opposes the proud, because grace to the humble. You know what I mean? And if you look at different Bible characters, you know, you seen Pharaoh, super prideful. He didn't want to let God's people go, Israelites, you know. You see this is just so much, you know, Saul, you know, he was kind of jealous of, you know what I'm saying, his successor, and he was trying to kill him, you know what I mean, because of pride and his ego. Like, pride can really, like, cripple you. You know, I've seen it in my friends' lives, my family's lives. Pride really cripples people from even just learning new things, you know what I'm saying, asking for help. And even J. Cole said it, pride is the devil, this new album, you know. It's really true.
And the scary thing about people who are prideful is they're so prideful they can't admit they're prideful, or they can't see that they're prideful. And it's scary because pride can show up in so many different ways. It's not like the typical, like, oh, I'm the best. It's not always that. Sometimes thinking less of yourself and not taking on certain responsibilities or trying to achieve certain dreams is prideful because you don't want other people to see you fail. Right? Amen. So it can work both ways. And so pride is, it can be disguised in so many ways. And if you do your best to acknowledge it, identify it, and work on it, the same thing with the thoughts, any thoughts you have that are negative, that are not of God or in alignment with God's word, you can shift your entire life by just changing that and the course of your life. And so it's important, but sometimes we don't see where we need to put in the work. And I think that's what it is, just trying. And if you don't know, ask someone you trust. Hey, how do you think I can? Remember, I'm very practical.
I used to be really prideful in a lot of different areas, but God just grown that. Like, I just seen in God's word, like, God won't bless your pridefulness. He will bless your humility, but not your pridefulness. You know what I'm saying? So God grew for myself a lot. You know what I'm saying? God grew me a lot just to be more humble and be more meek. You know. But another question I have for you is, what does your mountaintop look like?
Oh, I thought about that. Just being a great mom, and by great mom I mean, and a great wife, and by great mom and wife is being kind, humble, and loving. And then of course, and that's like my family life. Just I want my kids to look back and think, oh, my mom, she was a great mom. Like, she helped me become who. I don't want them to become. That's the thing. As a parent, they say, don't raise your kids to be a better version of you. That That's not what it's about. God's not giving you little minions, right?
That's a word right there.
Right. That was, trust me, I've been. There's a lot of things God's been revealing. So I'm like, oh gosh, okay, that's awesome. So I want my kids to say, and my husband to say, Krisel worked hard to help me be a better version of me, like to help me accomplish God's goals, God's path in my life. Like I want to help them reach where God wants to place them. And that's tough as a mom because you don't want anything bad to happen to your kids. So sometimes you're like I'm this huge overly protective person, and I can't do that. But so for that, and then as for a career, just I would love to be a well-known attorney, not for the notoriety, but because I want to be a resource for people. I want people to think, oh, we can call Krisel or her firm, because by then I would love to have a team, an enterprise, like a huge firm. Awesome. And I know that they'll take care of us. They'll give us the time to explain and to walk us through, even if they cannot take the case. There's so many cases, calls I get a day, and I'm on the phone with someone for an hour, and I know it's not a case. I know I'm not taking a case, but I'm helping that person navigate whatever difficult decision they're calling me about or difficult situation. And so my goal and to grow the nonprofit and to really make it a resource for people who need that kind of help.
That's awesome. That's cool. Obviously, that shows your character, Like, you just show, like, it's not about money, it's really about caring. You just said you on the phone for an hour, you're not going to take the case, but you still take the case. I mean, you still talk to them because you care. And you help. You want to help, So that's awesome right there. So I wrote down these statistics right here. Wrote down these statistics that I just want to read out loud. Just doing some research, film study, I gotta, study, whatnot. It says in Texas, California, and Florida, had the highest number of forcible rape cases in the nation in 2020, right? And so in 2020, the number of forcible rape cases in Florida alone was 7,686 people. So when you hear those numbers, this and that, this in Florida alone, like what goes through your head, and like what
goes through my head? Unfortunately, a lot of those are the numbers higher because, like I said earlier, it's underreported, which is a sad thing to think about. The second thing is we just need to do better. It all, and by we, I just mean anyone that's in that area of either lawmaking, law enforcement, prevention, advocacy, the legal world. We need to do better to protect or to prevent. If you see something, if you see something that's of a concern, speak up. Even as it can be, teachers. I've had cases, unfortunately, where there's an abuser at a school and teachers say, well, I saw this was a red flag, but then no one speaks up because they're afraid to offend somebody. Like, if you put on a scale, keeping a child safe or offending somebody, So my thing is, no matter what arena you are in, no matter what area of work, just doing better. And also as individuals, the survivors, trying to avoid situations. I never think it's a survivor's fault that they got sexually assaulted, but my point is, there's some cases where someone spikes someone's drink and things like that. Like, being careful about not just taking drinks from someone or not just trusting anybody. So as individuals, certain things we can do to certain things that we may be able to do that would prevent placing ourselves in that kind of situation. And it's hard because we go through life thinking especially when you're young, you're invincible. You do the craziest things. You don't think you're ever gonna die or get hurt. But just doing certain little things that may help. If you go into a party, go with a group. Don't leave without your group. Things like that. But please don't interpret what I'm saying as if it's ever the survivor's fault. It's never the survivor's fault. Never, but it's just about safety measures, right?
Exactly.
If a child gets hurt,
evil people in this world.
Exactly. If a child gets hurt in school, it's not the child's fault, but maybe teach the child not to go on that high monkey bar that he or she can't reach. So it's not that it's a child's fault, or the survivor's fault. But my point is maybe things to kind of lessen the probability of something like this happening, not being alone. So I just feel like there's so many things. I can go down the list. But
because we do live in a fallen world, and so you gotta take precaution.
Definitely, it's about taking precautions, 100%.
And so, this is the final thing we want to ask and say is, what would you tell someone out there watching, who's too embarrassed or too scared to get help because they've been physically or sexually abused or even bullied. Like, what would you tell someone who's scared to speak up or who's too scared to get help?
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, you did nothing wrong, no matter what the other person made you believe. And secondly, find someone you can trust with this information that you can say something to and that can help you. And the third thing is, although it is scary, this doesn't define your life. It redefines it, but doesn't define it. So if you were supposed to get here, you can still get here. It's just going to be a different path. And so you just have to, a big part of healing is telling that deep, dark secret, which it's not your secret. You didn't do anything wrong. You're asking for help. It's like, for example, imagine I'm driving and I get hit by a car, T-boned by a car. Am I going to be ashamed in telling someone that someone T-boned me in my car? No, I'm a victim of that. And so the same way I didn't control that, the same way I didn't cause that, the same way I didn't ask for that is the same way I would say, you didn't control that, you didn't ask for that, and it was not your fault. And so I would have no issues telling someone, hey, I got T-boned last year, my back is messed up. So my point is, ask for help, try to get out of that situation as safely as you possibly can. And away from that person who's abusing you in this way. But there's so many things, there's so many different types of cases. It's hard to give out just like an overall advice, because obviously everybody's case is different. There's someone that maybe in foster care and their life is being threatened. So it's a scary, delicate thing. I've had that case before. And so it just ask for help, someone you trust, whether it's in school, a teacher you trust that you know that cares for you, things like that. But definitely ask for help so you can get out of the situation and start to heal and start to set your new path in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just want to say thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming on the show and taking the time just to share what you do. You know what I'm saying? It's really great for the world. It's really great. We need more people like you, more attorneys like you. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for just doing this, and that was awesome. Awesome insight. I learned a lot about different things and got more insight, and now I'm more knowledgeable. I'm pretty sure you guys are more knowledgeable as well. And so that's it. That's FDA. Krisel, McSweeney, Ross Vestry. You know what I'm saying? Like, comment, subscribe for more videos like this. I'm signing out. That's FDA approved. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
A lot of great questions.
Yeah.